In this, what will probably be our final video for our week number 6, I want to take a look at some programming terms. So this is an opportunity for us to take a deep breath and take a moment and explore some of the things that we might have covered or maybe glazed over in previous courses and previous lectures. I'm going to Control M, and I'm going to go to the plant results activity, and I'm going to explain some of the things that we have. If we take a look, we have a constant up here, public static final string plant result equals plant result. String indicates that the value that we put in here is character data and must be enclosed in double quotes. That's what string means. Plant result is the name we've given the variable. Static and final, don't worry too much about those. Public means that this variable can be accessed from other classes, as we've seen done several times. If we go down, we see that we have a method called protected void on create. So this is a method signature. We have an access modifier. We have a return type, which is void, means it doesn't return anything. We have a method name, and then we have the parameters that we're passing into the method. Okay? Okay, within this method we have we have a variable here of type string, and the variable name is search term. What we're doing is we're calling a series of methods here, and the result, or what those methods return, is what's going to populate this variable. Okay? Down here we have a variable called PST. This is a variable of type plant search task, and it's getting populated by calling a constructor to create a new plant search task object. So when I say variable object class, what do I mean anyway? Well, let me explain that through an example. Right now we're in the plant results activity, and because it ends with activity, because it's an activity, it should really have just things that are involved with displaying a screen. It should not be polluted with things that are unrelated to drawing a screen, such as fetching data. That should really be something that's in a separate separate class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control M, and I'm going to right click on the source folder here, and I'm going to choose New, and then Package. And this is kind of like a folder, a way to organize our classes. I'm going to say com.plantplaces.dao, data access object, and I'll choose Finish. Under com.plantplaces.dao, I'm going to make a new class, and I'm going to call this class, let's call it PlantDAO stub. That'll be fine, just a new class. I'm going to choose Finish. Okay, so one thing that we're going to want to do in a class is give it some Javadoc. One of the questions we had is, what is Javadoc? Javadoc is documentation that describes what a class or a method does. And I will say PlantDAO stub is a class that returns hard-coded, we'll Control M so we can see this in high def, hard-coded, predictable information. Okay, so I've created a new class called PlantDAO stub. What am I going to put here? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our plant results activity, and I'm going to take that method called fetch plants, which isn't really related to UI directly. Really, this is just a method. Allow me to Control M again so we can see this in high def. This is simply a method that's getting dummy data. And next week what we're going to do is we're going to see what it's going to take to get live data. So I'm going to Control X, which cuts that method out of the class plant results activity, and then I'm going to choose Save. I'll choose Control M. I'm going to go to PlantDAO stub, and I'm going to paste that method into PlantDAO stub. And now what I'm going to do after I Control M is I'll put a comment here that simply says return predictable plant records based on the search term. Now, what we have is, you see there's this @param search term. What we need to do after this is we need to describe what this incoming parameter is. We need to describe what this incoming parameter is. So search term, the data that we want to use to search for plants, and then return a list of plant objects. So for the return, we're describing this return type. So when you see Javadoc on a method, we want to say what the method does, we want to describe the parameters, and we want to describe the return types. Okay, and now I'm going to save. Now the trick is, because I have removed that method from plant results activity will now not compile because we're calling this return fetch plants, and fetch plants does not exist anymore. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to create a variable of type plant search DAO. So we'll say plant DAO, wasn't that it? Plant DAO stub, that's what it was. Okay, so to create a variable, we start with the variable type, plant DAO stub, and then we have a variable name, plant DAO, let's say. Okay. Now I get a red line, which means it doesn't know who this plant DAO stub is. So Control-Shift-O has it try to resolve that automatically, which many times it can do, and indeed it just did. Next, plant DAO, we're going to say, sorry, let me add a comment. Initialize the plant DAO variable to a plant DAO object, plant DAO stub object. Okay, plant DAO equals new plant DAO stub. Okay. Finally, pass our search parameter to the fetch plants method. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call the fetch plants method, but I'm going to call it on this variable plant DAO. Return plant DAO dot fetch plants. Just like so. And with any luck, oh, okay, sorry, I need to make one change to that. I need to change the return type from private to public. There we go. And with any luck now, everything compiles. So what did we do? We have created a new class called plant DAO stub. Okay, what's the importance of that? The importance of that is that because this is a new class, it can be a variable type. What does that mean? Variables are places in memory, and we have, in the computer's memory, we have to give them a type so we can tell the computer what we want to store in that place in memory. Okay, and that's what we're doing here. We're giving the variable a type. We also have to fill that variable with something, and what we're doing here is we're filling that variable with a new object of type plant DAO stub. If you remember the video I posted a while back where we talked about classes versus objects, what we're doing here is we're making an object out of plant DAO stub, and we're storing that object in plant DAO. Finally, once we have that populated, we're calling fetch plants. The program will continue to work as it always has. We've just done a little bit of refactoring so we can explore what a variable is, a variable type, constructing a new object, and then calling a method on a variable. For what we need to know, this will be fine so far. This construction will be fine. Those are some of the different things we're doing. This is a method call here. This is a method call here. And that method is named fetch plants. If I hold down Control and mouse over, it turns into a hyperlink. I can click, and it's going to take me into the actual method implementation. So there we go. That's a quick introduction to some object-oriented terms. Actually, I'm sorry, there is one more I wanted to show, and that is one that's relatively important. If I say plant DAO.fetch plants, take a look at this. It's a little bit hard to see here because it's off screen, so let me recenter a bit. I'll move this all the way over here. I'm going to say plant DAO.fetch plants. Now, if you take a look on the left, and again, still off screen a little bit. Let me see if I can move it. I don't think I can. It says return predictable plant records based on search term, parameters search term, the data that we want to use to search for plants, and returns a list of plant objects. Let me move just a little bit more, then we'll see that again. Okay, and well, now it's just off screen a little bit more, but nonetheless, if I drag, there we go. Hopefully you can see it now. So what is this? Does that look familiar at all? That is the Javadoc. That is the Javadoc that we created earlier. And that's the reason for having Javadoc, is it gives us the ability to see documentation when we're calling a method. So if we want to call a method, the Javadoc or the context-sensitive help will appear, and it will tell us all about that method. Okay, so that's all we have for this video, and that's all we have for this week. After watching this series of videos, complete quiz question suggestions for, I believe it's quiz number 6. Thank you.